record button. And we are recording. All right, that's pretty cool. All right, you guys. One of the really seminal, basic, core issues of being an artist is that you create. Duh. And you have a one-to-one relationship with your artwork. And with your artwork, you are creative, and you are expansive, and you take risks, and you're confident, and you're vulnerable, and you have this really beautiful kind of symbiotic relationship where you and your art both grow together. Awesome. And then you kind of stop. Instead of seeing that, maybe in the rest of your life, in going to the grocery store or making the bed, you're nowhere near as creative, or you don't have the same creativity, or you're not using your brain in the same kind of manner. To a really large extent, your career is a work of art. And you shape your work of art. And you can have a dialogue with your career and where it's going and how it's going and what you're doing with it and how it's influencing you and how you're influencing it. And part of your career are all the relationships that you bring into it, all the people with whom you interact. To a large extent so far, we've talked about relationships with collectors, now with other artists and with curators. But it can be with everybody. It can be with the puppy down the street. It can be with everybody. It's an opportunity to have this, it's kind of like we go into the studio to make our art. But maybe we can go out of the studio to make our art, and our art is about, how we approach our life. This week we've talked about, or we want to talk about, I've asked you to listen to things about the support system. You do not exist in a vacuum. There are all kinds of people who are eager and available to assist you in moving your vision along. Either because they see it as an opportunity to make money, how crass, or because they believe in your vision and they want to see it get further. Oh, you like saving the green grasses. Me too. Let me see what I can do to help you within my means. That can be a collector, that can be a writer, that can be, the art consultant, all of these people. I think, for example, Clyde mentioned John Seed before we got started. John Seed is a writer who's been writing for years for Huffington Post, who's written books, who's written magazines, articles, who's highly respected, who's published a lot, who is, like most writers and artists, a writer for hire. He is available for a commission. You can hire John Seed to write a catalog essay for you. You can hire John Seed to write 500 words for you, from which you can find 4 sentences that you can put into a paragraph. It isn't like you have to go, oh my God, I need something written about me. How am I going to get an exhibit? Where am I going to get shown? How am I going to get somebody to come? Once I get shown, how am I going to get somebody to write about it? It isn't always that convoluted. Frequently, you can send an email to some person and say, I've been reading what you write. It's really awesome. Can I hire you to write for me? So I'm looking at my notes, or I'm looking at what's on the website about how to, the support system. how to get attention, curators, art critics, catalogs, self-generated exhibits, pop-up galleries, writers for hire, juried exhibitions, public relations, social media. That's where Katie Lynch was. I hope somebody listened to her. Regular media, etc. So throw up some hands. Let's start talking about, what you can do. I mean, to an extent, what challenges you have in front of you that others can assist you with. One of the things I like to say is nothing is impossible for the person who has somebody else to do it for them. So, these are people who can provide assistance. I don't see any hands. All right, I'm going to the wave your hand in front of your face view. Hey, Mark. All right, you are unmuted, Mr. Barker. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about was what I missed last week. I went to see Sharon Loudon down at 21C last week.
Yeah, you went over to the competition, huh?
Yeah, well, she was very good, and she was a very good speaker. But she kind of addressed a little bit of this, and I want to pass on some of her information. She was saying to answers to questions from the audience of, I can't get a pop-up show over here. And she said, well, where's your audience? Are they in the mall? Have a pop-up in the mall. She was trying to throw a lot of those things back to us that have us figure out what are we doing and where are our collectors. Don't wait for them to come to us, but we go to them. So there's a lot of that concept in what she was trying to convey to people last Monday. But I think that there's...
Let me say something about Sharon and interrupt you for a second, Mark.
Sure.
Sharon and I have both been doing this for a long time. And I did a webinar with Sharon, and I think you would enjoy listening to it. And by doing this, we both distill, a lot of essence from what we perceive in the art world and how people accomplish things. And I think she and I perceive similar truths or similar kinds of perceptions. Maybe she and I have different emphasis, but I think she has a lot of experience and a lot of wisdom. Good person.
Well, and she was just also adding points of when you want someone to write about you, if you don't have a critic locally, then create a critic. She's trying to throw a lot of that back to us. And so who's a local critic? Well, we have one here in Oklahoma City, and he's barely a reviewer. Every show is worth seeing, and it's a not to miss kind of a show. So the reviewers the critic doesn't exist around here in Oklahoma City, but we have, 10 artists a day have an opening here. So I think what she was saying was find a poet. Poets make the best critics. In other words, create your own critic if there's not one. So a lot of what she was trying to convey to us was throwing it back into our hands. And for instance, someone asked her about grant writing, and she said, you probably have an art history student in your class. Why don't they write for you? And so those are the kind of things that she was, again, throwing a lot of that back to us to create and to figure out on our own how we might solve those problems. Now, one of the things I want to say that when I was listening to all these videos this week, I think what it really did for me, and I really applaud Paul for the way he was able to handle these interviews, because I was hearing what all of these critics and all of these curators are looking for, and I'm trying to think, I don't want to create a piece of artwork based on what they're looking for, so to speak, but at the end of a piece of work or at the end of a series, I need to have a better handle on what I think about what I just did and use some of their probably about a dozen criteria and see, does it fit into any of that? So a lot of what I was learning was how to take my work and write myself about it to help clarify what I'm doing. So I love that concept of hearing all the people and what they were trying to convey in their writing.
Mark, thank you. There's this website called Delicious Line, and this is where people can submit their art reviews of shows. It shouldn't be, your show that you're reviewing, but it can be other people's shows, and it could be in Oklahoma City, and it could be the show next door, and they could review yours. And these reviews are each meant to be 100 words with this concise information, and they can be anywhere. And they pay you for these things. I think, not a lot, but, maybe $50. So this is an opportunity, Mark, of someone who's, taken that idea. I forget his name. Martin? But delicious line, and it's a nice idea. I'm not sure that it's going to survive. Another thing, Mark, as an aside, perhaps, in terms of thinking about feedback, perspective about what you've done, what's going on, I don't know. I like the idea of swapping studio visits and having other artists come into the studio and having dialogue, and maybe just sitting there with a sandwich. I mean, I think sometimes you just have to sit there and let the art soak in without talking about it, and then, and then talk about it. I'm extrapolating from when I had a gallery and I would have dinners the day before the opening, and I would target people to come to the dinners, and, the artist obviously would be there, and there would be 20 to 25 people. Because I bought my own 3 tables that served 8 people, and I figured all this shit out. If people sat there for an hour, the art, even if they didn't like it when they walked in, if they sit with it for an hour, they like it. And then you have the artist say some words, things start happening. Swapping studio visits, and having and exchanging some kind of dialogue with other artists, going to their space, and then 2-3 weeks later having them come to yours, could be interesting.
I want to add one thing to that.
Yep.
It needs to be done regularly. And that's what I've really come to the conclusion of after this last week, that the emails that I send out, sure I send out, but doing things more regularly is what I think I've been missing in a lot of my own personal outreach.
Yeah, I know. I really like being spontaneous, but I have this new word, metronomic, like a metronome.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
All right. So who else, listen to writers, listen to things, which, Beth, I see you. Beth, were you bidding or did you want to say something? Go ahead. Wait, you're not unmuting. Why aren't you unmuting? Unmute audio. It's not working. Can you unmute yourself?
Oh, no, I was trying to adjust the light so I could write, so I could see. That's all. But
how exciting.
I was a little frustrated listening to a lot of the, I was inspired listening to the artists, but a lot of the curators and the people that are talking about the work, some of them were very sarcastic. A couple of them were, and I wasn't as inspired by them. And yes, I find it's really important to be able to articulate my own work in my writing. And I really enjoy studio visits and swapping with other artists. I think those are very, very effective. But I agree.
I don't remember anybody being sarcastic, but I'm not ruling it out. I mean, Dave Hickey certainly is. I mean, he's sarcastic enough to cover the whole room. I don't know who else was.
I guess what I'm saying is that when you're listening to the artist talk, a lot of it is like from the heart, and it's from what they're doing. And when you're listening to certainly not Elizabeth Smith. I mean, she was and also the Patty Johnson.
Yep.
She was also, but some of them were kind of like, this is a game, this is all part of, and it is to some people, but it's not.
Oh, you must be talking about Jerry.
Yeah.
Jerry has issues. I think that, maybe he'll hear this. We all have issues, and Jerry's a little bit more public with his.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, okay.
It doesn't mean we shouldn't have listened to them.
No. I totally agree, and I want you to hear some of this icky stuff too, because it's there.
Right.
And I'm not solely interested in you coming away with Paul's point of view. I want you to have, a panoply, so you come away with your own.
Right.
Cool. Got it. Kelly, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So I'm going to talk about three things. I'll start with Alison Stansfield. Right. I've been following her for 3 years on her email list 3 years ago. And
Wait. Who did you say? You break up sometimes, so I have to pick it.
Alison Stansfield.
Okay.
All right. So through the emails that she sends out weekly, I try to put that into what I practice, okay? And she talks about writing. So about maybe 2 months ago, I started to write about the art that I do. And through writing, I have learned what exactly it is that I try to portray. I didn't understand that quite well before. Okay, so I just wanted to put that out there. Second thing is support. So this happened to me last week. One of the people that has bought my art previously got in touch with me and was like, I haven't seen you put out much art on Instagram or on Facebook recently. What's happening? So I just told him I'm having a few issues here and there, and he's like, what can I do to help? So when we're talking about support, we can look in very many different directions, and people don't usually look at their clients because we're thinking about they bought our stuff. We never really think that they are actually willing to help us, right? And he just said, you know what, do this. Tell me what it is that you require every month, and let's see if we can sort you out or something like that. So that is a form of support you can get.
Totally.
Or I didn't.
Correct.
Yeah, I was just stunned as well. Okay. Third thing, words and okay. I have some friends who are into poetry. And I was just thinking that maybe we could come together and have a show together with poets and artists and call the show Words and Pictures. What this means is that people who are interested in poetry will come, people who are interested in art will come. And through that, the people who are interested in poetry may actually begin to open their eyes towards the world of art, and through that you sort of get your work to be seen, get your name out there, and even get support in terms of approval, in terms of criticism, and so on and so forth. That's my 2 cents for today.
That's interesting. I found it interesting that you said that's my 2 cents. That's really interesting. I find that a very American saying that I didn't realize other cultures picked up on. Yeah, I think that's all good stuff. Allison is also really good. Allison is much more about how to be organized, and she is more, I'm a different kind, there's a different emphasis on the kinds of artists we work with. It's subtle. I really like Allison a lot also. As for being able to see things by writing that you don't necessarily see by making, I think it's true but because you're working in a different media. I think frequently if an artist is stuck in the studio, I encourage them to change something. Instead of working with paint, start working with rock, or start working with clay. Instead of working with your right hand, work with your left hand. I think, instead of trying to say what my art is about with clay, say what my art is about in writing. I think that helps because it draws on some other part of your brain that isn't getting exercised as much, and certain things can come out that way. I think that works nicely. Do you guys see how curators are kind of a mixed bag? To an extent, curators, I think curators are supposed to really function to be of service. I think they're servants, really. I think they exist to honor artists. And I think today most curators have gotten frustrated with that role. And they don't see that their position is to honor artists. They see that their position is to be an artist. And they're supposed to have a point of view. And then they look for art that fulfills that point of view. I think a better curator frequently is one who's taking the pulse and goes, what are artists doing over here? What are they doing over there? How does all this relate? Let's bring it together and show it and see if we don't have something interesting happening. You know, I think there's still curators who do that. So I think it's important that you get in touch with them so they know what's going on with you so that you can be included in those kinds of exhibits. Also, though, I think more and more curators today have a point of view. I'm really interested in migration. I'm really interested in female issues. I'm really interested in, I don't know what, I was going to go with a more pure art topic. So to an extent, it's worthwhile paying attention to curators and what their interests are and writing to them and keeping in touch with people. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about, you know, growing gallery relationships and writing to 2 new galleries every week. And I like writing to 2 new curators every month and then following up with them. Curators are a whole lot harder. I mean, you know, they don't really publish what it is they've just done or what they're working on. Frequently what they've done is, you know, like what's showing up was finished a year ago. It can be tricky. Hey, Jeff, I'm coming over there. You are unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a couple of topics. I was going to, one thing just to talk about the critics that you were just mentioning. I feel that after listening to the critics from the week, the webinars, I feel like that it's that vulnerability comes up again. So you're putting yourself out there with your art and then exposing it to these critics to have them have their way with it. That's sort of a leap of faith, and it's kind of scary.
Right. Here's how it goes. Hi, critic. Here's my stuff. Isn't it awesome? Would you please write about me? Dear Jeff, I don't do that anymore. Best of luck. Dear critic, hey, you write really cool shit. Will you write about me? Dear Jeff, my palette is full. I'm sorry I can't get to it now. You know, you don't know whether they're dissing you or whether they're totally busy. Dear Jeff, I charge $10,000 a word. Get back to me. Send here, deposit, send a wire to my bank. You know,
it's not.
You're not going to say your shit sucks. They're not going to say that, number one. Number two, you're making good art and it's pretty damn interesting and people should want to see it. And you and all of you all over there, I've said all you all twice tonight. I'm really proud of myself. All of you are really good artists. You are doing this because you believe in your art and you are, insert really negative pejorative word, jerk, if you don't put your art out into the world. You know, as I said, Jeff, do you have children?
Yes.
Would you tell your children not to go to school because it's hard for you to drive them and be seen in public?
No.
That's right. Would you tell your art that I'm not going to put you out there where you can be exposed so that you can grow and communicate because I have a problem?
No.
Are we okay? Next.
That's good.
I know. I came up with that a week ago, and I went, "Oh, that's really cruel."
No, and the other thing is the writing side of it. So a writer to hire and the concept of a catalog. So I have an exhibit coming up in the spring, and a solo exhibit, and that brought up the concept of a catalog for the show. So I'm thinking about that and what that looks like, and having these critics or writers, you know, for hire can do the intro for it. Is it better to, so I guess 2 ideas on that is, are catalogs dead? Is that something that I should pursue, or is everything digital now?
Love catalogs. I think catalogs are cool all the way around. My thing is to create a catalog. Jose is trying to get into the meeting and doesn't know the meeting number. 1 sec. Okay, I like the idea of having a catalog ready to go a week and a half before the opening of the exhibit, and doing a digital catalog and having it could be just a twofold, it could just be a one-fold, you know. And I like the idea of I think you don't want to overdo it necessarily. I mean, you can be encyclopedic, but I don't think you have to. I think a minimum would be 2 paintings and an installation shot. I like the idea of taking the installation shot the day before the opening. Yeah. Or, you know, as soon as the thing is installed, so it's live. Ooh, super excited. Here's my new brochure catalog. You know, come see the show. It opens tomorrow night. Can't wait to see you. Really interested in your opinion. Then, a week to 10, you get a number of those printed. And you send them to people that you really care about with a handwritten note. You can send them to the same people who received the email. And the idea is not to say, oh, I mean, you can say, I'm so proud of this, but don't say, oh, look how cool I am and how wonderful I am, aren't I hot stuff. Say instead, I'm proud of this. I really value your input. I'd appreciate, you know, any critique or comments on the growing aesthetic, blah, blah. Okay, but I like that catalog thing. I like the tangible thing. I mean, one thing that I think is really good for all of us is, I should make a note to do this, handwritten notes to people with stamps on them. Sharon Loudon, she finally stopped. Every year she'd send everybody's birthday cards. Sharon, I don't know. She should have gotten a discount from the post office. Amazing. It's a good move. You good?
No, that's good. Thank you.
All right, cool. I'm coming back up here to see everybody bored. Who else wants to say something? Chris, I want to hear from you tonight. Might be, all right, Chris, go ahead. You are unmuted.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hi. Paul, I think this course is remarkable.
Thank you.
I'm fascinated by the range of people in our class, all of us, and
the
people that
humanity of it all.
Yeah, the people you're talking to. I feel like my world has like expanded. And while Beth was saying that about the sessions this week, I absolutely love the sessions. I love how we all have our different, you know, every single person you're talking to has their own point of view. And so it's just intellectually and emotionally, it has stretched so much.
Can you imagine how fortunate I feel?
Well, that's the other thing I want to, are you going to tell us your story at some point? Because it's.
What's my story?
Yeah, how you got into all this and your gallery, and because it's like you've created this artwork out of your life with art that I feel like we're all in an installation piece together. And it's really.
Yeah, I don't know if it's. I'm not opposed to it, but it could be long, and I don't know that it serves you.
Well, I think it would be really interesting if others agree. So that's something before we end.
I'm not opposed to doing that, but I mean, it's going to take 10 minutes or more.
That's cool.
And somebody might have a question.
All right, well, that's cool.
About it, so I don't know.
But I do have specific couple of questions to ask you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it was Dan Cameron who talked about, and you have mentioned this before, that it's not so important about our local communities as it is about finding places in the world that resonate with what we're creating and what's being created in those places. That begs a question for me about how, like in the vastness of the world, if
I don't
there's a,
think it's about geography. I think it's about soul. And I think you're right, not identifying physical places that are really prone to liking orange. I think you're looking for people who like orange and believe in orange and communicate orange.
but what if there are people in Turkey that like orange? And I like orange, and we would really like orange together. But how does that happen? Is that just a synchronistic?
One of the ways it typically happens is, for me, only me, with you, is when I'm working with people one-on-one, I get to know you and understand your oranges and start saying, oh, do you know Louise Bourgeois' work? And do you know her sister who's doing such and such? I've got her email here. Should I write her for you? It goes like that. So,
Okay.
I mean, if I can do that now, but I can't. I get some sense of you from, your depth and Facebook and your breadth, but I don't have enough to be able to contribute cogently.
Right. So we could talk about that.
So this is a
in
blast,
session.
but the one-on-one stuff gets, our souls.
More in the oranges.
Yeah.
Okay.
But regardless of that, I'm not trying to pitch that. I think that's what you're looking for is kindredness.
Mm-hmm.
And by putting yourself out there and indicating your availability for it, people are going to suck up on it, and some of them are going to be appropriate and some of them are going to be inappropriate. Also towards that direction, all of you get a one-on-one session with me anytime you want. That's a strategy session, for you, which is sort of like a precursor or a prelude to what a one-on-one relationship would be, which is part of why I do it. And maybe we can get some of that accomplished in that session.
That's great. May I ask you one other thing about the curators? When you were just talking about finding curators?
Yeah.
Where are curators? I mean, when they're not in a museum, or they're like just freelance curators that...
There are freelance curators, and there's probably there's got to be a compendium of freelance curators, and I don't have it at the tip. I mean, I can look for it, and I'm assuming it exists, and you can find it.
Okay.
Most of them inevitably end up having some association with the museum, I'm thinking, but not necessarily. I mean, you could be a curator. You can curate an exhibit, and you can curate. I mean, I've seen plenty of artists curate an exhibit and then curate another exhibit and then go, oh my God, this is working.
Okay.
One model that I really like is a friend of mine who's recently moved into a new studio, Barbara Kennan, Koenen, who's one of the most awesome humans on the planet. And her studio, she has like an anteroom in front of her studio that is like 10 by 15 feet that she has decided is a gallery. And she's invited people to exhibit in this gallery whose work she wants to see when she's making her own art. And she holds openings for these artists, and there's like 2 or 3 or 4 pieces in her gallery that is open 4 hours a week on Saturday afternoons and by appointment when she's in the studio. And she's selling stuff, and she's having dialogues. Mark, same kind of thing, for people doing this. I mean, one way to really get in touch with what people think about your work is to open the door and let them in. Tony Fitzpatrick, a good friend of mine, had a storefront studio. I mean, I'd go visit Tony and do studio visits, and people would walk right in off the street and go, hey, I saw a pretty picture. What's going on here? He goes, I make art. And I go, really? This stuff? Yeah. Oh, bye. I mean, that's something to, John Cusack walked in and bought stuff off the street from him that way. You never know who's going to walk in the door.
Get it out there, in other words. Yeah.
Yeah, make yourself available. I mean, I think so much of what we're all trying to do is to communicate. I'm trying to communicate through you guys, so the more you get out there, the happier I am. And I think, the same thing's true for your art. It's earned, dying to be expressed.
That's great.
Cool. I see that 2 people posted something in the chat, but I don't know. Let's see. What does that say? William Randall, Independent Curators International. See? Nothing's
Oh, okay.
impossible for the person who has somebody else to do it for them. Told you.
That's
Thank you,
good.
William.
Yay.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Who else wants to participate? I'm not seeing anybody. Okay. Bye. Clara, you want to talk? Go ahead. Clara, then I'm coming to Susan. Clara, you're on.
Okay, yes, I hire John C. to write 500 words for me.
Yep.
And so he sent me the first draft, and it's sounding good. It's the first time that I, tell the story to somebody. It helped me, like Mark was saying, clarify what is it that I'm doing, what is my end purpose, and why is it important? Why now? Who's my audience? All those questions that I had to answer myself before talking to him, so that I, tell him what to write about. So the just for that process, to go through that process was worth it, and then I'm gonna, have a nice written essay, saying what my art is about and what I am about too. So just wanted to share that. And he's charging me $500 for the
$1 a
500
word.
essay.
Yeah, perfect. That's about right. That's what I would have expected. And it took him how long from the time you contacted him till the time he delivered?
Like a week, and because he said he was super busy. It was super fast.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I know. I don't know how they do it. Okay. Yeah, cool. Susan, hold on. I gotta come find you. You are unmuted, Susan. Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say last week there was somebody who said that they wanted in the group who wanted to become a curator. Wasn't that you, Andy? There's somebody in the group who said that they wanted to do that. Can't we
I don't know that. That could be possible. I don't recall.
where is that? Somebody
Is there somebody in this group who's talking about wanted to be a curator? Anne, do you want to talk? You made it. Here you are. Go. You're going to have to unmute yourself. Can't hear you.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I mentioned this before. I had stumbled into the position of curating a show called Chicago Artists Interpret Shakespeare as They Like It.
Right.
There is a Facebook page on it that you can all go to. And there were 10 venues, and it was a great way to meet people. It was a great way to use my eye, to invite new people every time. I never disinvited anyone. There were a couple of artists that were discordant in the way they handled some things, so they just weren't invited back. It did some good things for my career. But it's one of those things where if I'm not paid to do it, I'm not interested in doing it anymore. Okay? I mean, it was a wonderful experience. It also was a good experience writing the catalog statements for 3 different catalogs that were printed. And it's a good way of clarifying your own aesthetic by who you choose. And I've benefited by being curated into shows by some of the artists who are also curators that were in the show. Anyway, it's an experience that I think every artist should do at least once. Interestingly, I did get paid by Carthage College. That was unexpected, $500. And one of the artists who was in every exhibit, just out of the blue, gave me a check for $300 because of my quote-unquote hard work. All this while I was doing my own work and being in other exhibits. But it's a good way of reaching out. It's a good way of connecting with the art world. But you can burn out on it a bit. And if you're an artist and a curator, you have to have a solid sense of what your own aesthetic is and what your goals are.
Let's take that as an opportunity to move this conversation a bit to talking about balance. And I think it's like, I'm a strong believer in the benefits of generosity. I think it's, a really good strategy. Plus, I think it's a nice place to come from as a soul place. But, as Anne's pointing out, if you're generous, frequently a lot of things come back. And Margaret was talking about magic, and some of the things that result of this course is a sense of magic that happens as engaging and putting ourselves out. And I'm talking today about how you can bring other people into the equation. I think it's way better to have somebody write about you than to write about yourself for publication. I think the point of view is, some of it is what is said, but also perhaps more important is who is saying it. If, the Pope says you're a good person, it probably carries some weight. So I think the same kind of thing exists artistically. And reciprocity and doing it yourself and doing it for others. And yet you have to find out how much you need to do for yourself. It's a tricky balance. And I guess for me, it's always like flowing. I'm not sure that you ever land on how much, I've got health issues. At certain time, I've got to say, no, I can't do that. I won't be good enough to be able to accomplish that if I do that. Where am I going? Who wants to talk? Now I'm coming to you if I don't see anybody's hands.
I want to say something more.
Go ahead.
Lecturing is a good idea. I did a lecture this evening, a PowerPoint on the Texas mural that I designed and organized for the Chicago Women's Caucus for Art. Afterwards, someone introduced themselves to me as a curator and is talking to me about being in one of her curated exhibits. And again, this was a lecture that was free. I wasn't being paid. I worked hard on it, but I gave selflessly and an opportunity came up. It also
that doesn't seem surprising.
Surprising?
I said somehow that does not seem surprising.
Yeah.
I think that's, it doesn't happen all the time, but yeah, awesome. Way to go. All right. Danelle, how are you? Where are you walking? Can you hear us? You're unmuted.
I can hear you. I'm going to go inside because the lawnmower is out. I just had a few thoughts. Just a reminder that I'm gathering information right now, and I really appreciate this course. When I create my paintings, I've also found that I poem at the same time. So I have a computer opened or notes on my phone. And so as this process is flowing through me, it comes in both the canvas and words. And so I've been practicing the word craft on stage locally, and it's a bit uncomfortable, but I'm actually used to it now. I'm more comfortable painting live in front of people. So the thought, I haven't done this yet, but I can see myself speaking my understanding of the artwork. I have several poems about what I believe it is at this time. When I started creating, I had no idea what was happening for me, but I'm really happy that I'm here on the Big Island and I'm connected to Mauna Kea and the cosmos. And so my work feels like it's out there in the stars in the sky. And I'm in the right place. And I am with my puppy, I'm sorry.
No worries.
So after 4 years of creating, I almost feel like I'm catching up to what it's about. I don't know if it's best expressed by me or someone else. One of my homework assignments is to sit down and write an artist statement and run it by you in the group, perhaps. And I can get some help there, but sometimes I know I know that there's a sense of groundedness that needs to happen and marketing and a plan, but I just want to say that I do this without a plan. Things unveil themselves with the lights and the reasons and the vibrations, and so I just keep on doing it and catching up with my vibration to understand it.
Sounds pretty perfect. Cool. Thank you for sharing that stuff.
Yeah.
Good for you. Mark, go ahead.
I just want to make one quick comment on that. Coincidentally, Allison Stansfield, she asked me to be in a show that she's got coming up here in a couple of weeks. And when I filled out all the applications, etc., Paul had worked with me on doing my artist statement. And then suddenly I have to redo everything because the numbers were so different than what we had come up with. And I just want to let everyone know that no matter what you come up with, make sure you got an artist statement that's 75 words and a bio that's 50, because that was very difficult to do at the last minute as I was submitting for the show. Just FYI.
I find that when I have to go to 50 words, I start adding more and more syllables. Yeah, cool. Thank you, dude. All right, who else would like to contribute this evening? Jose, I'm coming to you if your sound's working. I'm going to find out or not. But first, I'm going to check in with Sarah because I could, wait a minute, maybe I'll go to Ian. I need a southern accent. Sarah, you're unmuted, go ahead. No, yeah, you are, go ahead. Sarah.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, cool. I've had a bit of a bad week. I won't go into details. So I've only listened to 2 webinars. Jerry Saltz. Loved him. Thought he was great.
I knew you were either going to hate him or like him, or love him, one or the other. I didn't think there was going to be a middle.
Yeah, loved him. I thought he was, I don't know. I think I loved he was bold, brave, basically didn't care. And I think it's just made me realize that everybody in the art world finds it hard. It's not just the artists, it's everybody.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's where I wanted to say. Thank you. Go ahead. You reminded me what I wanted to do.
I guess instead of feeling like we're against one another, we're all in the same.
Yes.
And I think it was that. And I came away going, they're not against us. We're just all in the same lovely. And I think you might have said it, Paul, in one of your comments to one of the webinars about what a privilege it is to be part of this art world. And
yes.
I came away going, yeah, I am lucky.
Yeah. I mean, this is a great life, being in the art world. Being an artist is the best part. So thank you for reminding me, Sarah. Being an artist is the very best part, the creativity and the expression and the sense of fulfillment and progress and growth. Oh, what did I see? I saw a sign on the side of a bus. What did it say? I think it said, the best is a dead end. Better is a quest.
Yeah.
I thought that was weird for the side of a bus. That's what I wanted you to get, is that I think we frequently feel like we're alone in the art world, or this is us against them, and that there are gatekeepers, or there's somebody in our way, and we have to go through these steps, we have to go through this maze, we have to go through these gates. I don't believe that. I think there are just people there who are ready to help you if they have an excuse. They need an excuse.
I think it made me realize that we have to be a bit bolder as well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't find that easy, but I think they actually appreciate it if you are, I don't know.
I think it's identical to somebody being your next door neighbor or living down the block from you. Even if you're in an apartment building, you might have totally different politics. You might be totally different age. You might have a totally different number of feet, you know, but you still live on the same block. And you both go, oh, damn, it's going to rain. Or, oh, good, it's going to rain. You know, you have some common interest. Everybody in the art world is your neighbor. All of them want to see you do well. Wouldn't you like to see your neighbor do well? Wouldn't you help your neighbor if it didn't take too much effort? You know, if your neighbor says, hey, can I borrow a cup of sugar? You go, sure. If your neighbor says, can I have your Cadillac? You probably go, I don't think so. You know, so, you know, and if they don't like you, they're probably not going to do it. Not everybody's going to be nice, but basically people are available. And if you lead with generosity, people respond with more than that.
And the other thing I loved was the saying, it's, as an artist, you're basically dancing naked.
Yeah.
I thought that was so true. And I guess it's lovely, I don't know.
It's hard. That's really true. You have to dance naked and put it out there as if nobody's watching.
Yeah.
Oh my! And then you have to, you know, and then you have to pretend everybody. It's really challenging. It's very real. It's not like being a banker.
No.
It's not like selling gas or selling cars. Jose, it sounds like you have sucked up 3 doses of helium. Your voice is like a really, really high octave. Can't understand a word. It's really entertaining, but I have to mute you. I'm sure it's frustrating. I hope it's not too bad. I hope you can hear us okay.
Thanks, Paul.
Jose, I muted you. Sorry, dude. All right. Who else would like to say something? You guys. Brian, how you doing? You are unmuted.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I liked Elizabeth Smith a lot, especially, you know, you guys have been talking about it a lot, and she emphasized your ability to articulate yourself about your art, which has always been really hard for me. I'm trying to re-enter the art world now, but when I first came to New York about 17 years ago, I got immediately in the Bronx Museum of the Arts AIM program, which Jackie Battenfield was running at the time. And a lot of opportunities came from it. And I was in a variety of shows at the time, but I missed a lot of opportunities, I know, because I would be with the curator, I'd be with the gallerist, and I was totally tongue-tied. I couldn't talk about my work very well at all. And so I found this to be a particularly useful evening. The suggestions of lots of studio visits, which I do sometimes, but I guess I should really do more of that, swapping studio visits with other artists. And then also the suggestion to write about your art kind of as you're making it. Because I was doing that about a year ago for a while, and I think it helped me, you know, to write about individual pieces all the time instead of just like my art in general. I think that that's very helpful practice for that. And I think it's going to be necessary if I want to try to get my work out there more effectively than the last round when I did it. You know, I'd be there with Joe from Pierogi Gallery, and you know, he just visibly got frustrated with me because I wasn't able to say anything to him. So.
Oh, Joe's not very snobby. You know his art?
Pardon me?
You know Joe's art?
I actually was in a group show with him one time.
I
But
think you do just
not
fine.
at Pierogi Gallery, at another
Yeah.
location.
He's a good guy. I like him. I think you come across fine. I think you come across as sincere and considered. I think the objective, I'm guessing, this is brand new, try this out. I think the idea is not to come across good. I think the idea is to come across real, sincere. See if you can express yourself and be true to your art.
Yeah, I guess that's where I stumble. Is I
Right, you know what your art's about, or maybe writing about it. I guess rehearsing doesn't hurt. Just elevator pitch.
Yeah, I've done that, and I think the other most useful thing will probably be the studio visits, because if I'm one-on-one with an artist, and I think I also might take you up on the one-on-one too.
Cool.
Because I
That would
think
be
that
fun.
would go well. But that just seems to me to be very crucial, and you can see it with some people, artists who are
Totally.
successful are, I guess.
Some artists what you want to be able to convey is a sense that I'm going to get there. You can get on board now, you can get on board later, but watch out. That's what you want to not necessarily watch out, because it's not where we're going meteoric. We want to convey sincere, solid, steady growth. So somehow that's what we want to convey when we talk to people. And some artists you talk to, you go, that person's going to accomplish it. I can just tell. And some people you go, oh my God, they're stepping on their toes. So I don't know. I hate talking in front of a mirror. That's just the worst. But you can log into Zoom, I bet you, all by yourself. Not necessarily that meaning create your own meeting and record and do a pitch and talk, and then see how you look on video. That might be easier than a mirror.
Yeah, I guess I could try that.
Because I can look at myself now and watch these things and go, whoa, I don't really suck as much as I thought. That's not a bad place to get. So maybe,
right.
Yeah. Okay, so somebody else. Dorothy, how are you? Go ahead.
I'm fine, thank you. I think, just to respond to what has been said, it seems to me that when it's not so easy to talk about your own art, sometimes what makes it more easy is not to try to understand why you're doing it, but what you are doing. Just express your process, and when you start to express your process, then very often a lot of things are coming out. It's just what I wanted to say. Did you hear me?
Yeah.
It's like why you started in, what were your feelings when you started to do it, and how you felt, and what was deep inside of you. Then just that process very often unlock a lot of things.
That's a very vulnerable place.
But you don't actually need to tell it to everybody. But as long as you can hear yourself saying that, then you start discovering about what were your motivations, maybe where it comes from, and then you can work out what you really want to tell to others. I don't know.
Good point. Cool. Okay. Thank you. Would somebody else like to say something or ask a question? I haven't heard from Andy. Where's Andy? There you are. Andy, how are you doing? You're unmuted.
Thank you. Actually, somebody asked if I talked about curating last week, and I shook my head no, but that was the piece where I said I was thinking about trying to get a tractor trailer. And
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have much to say. I was not able to see many of the webinars this week, unfortunately.
Okay.
So I'm listening this week.
Bueno. Thank you. Joe. Where's Joe? I want to hear from Joe. There you are. You are unmuted, Senor. Go ahead.
I really enjoyed Jerry Saltz's webinar. I think he has great entertainment value, and
He does.
I loved that expression of dancing naked in front of the public with your art. And boy, he almost convinced me to move to New York because he thinks that's the center of the universe. But
where are you now? Aren't you in where are you?
I just got back from Santa Fe. I just spent 2 weeks in Santa Fe, and I had a nice.
Where's home?
West Sacramento.
That's what I thought. Okay.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to share that I've been trying out your ideas by talking to the gallerists, without soliciting, just getting to know them. And I go there often, so I've now they remember me, when I walk in and talk about the show that's up. And Charlotte Jackson, I got to talk with her a few times, and she had Charles Arnaldi there, and he was given a artist lecture, and I got.
You should have kicked him for me.
I told him about you, and he said to say hi.
Oh, good, good.
And I loved his presentation. He's real down to earth. He's again talks about his process, and he had a couple of series up, and I talked to him about the diversity of art, and how artists have, different different styles and subjects that they're working on at the same time. And, he said, he talked about how he just would get bored after a while and move to something else, and then maybe come back to it when he had something new to say.
He started casting potatoes.
Oh, yeah. He really liked talking about that. He knew that would push people's buttons.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah.
So went to lined up artist studio visits, and
good for you.
Yeah, it's just nice to be conscious of these ideas. I know a lot of us do these things, but now it's like way conscious about doing them. And so I came back really feeling fulfilled, like I'd really made some contacts and met some.
You and Chuck Arnoldi are existing in the same art world, and here's someone who's shown at 57 kick-ass museums, and you've only shown at 22 kick-ass museums, and he doesn't go, sorry, I can't talk to you. He goes, hey, we make art, cool, let's talk.
Well, after a couple of short conversations, he actually came up to me, and we had a really nice, longer conversation. I really like this.
Nice to see that he's grown up. Far out, dude. That's beautiful. All right, way to go, Chuck. Joe, I really appreciate that story. Thank you.
Sure.
Sarah, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, just getting back to your and Dorothy's conversation about vulnerability. Is there a point where your work can be too vulnerable?
Nope.
I just feel.
Isn't that scary?
Yeah.
The thing is that the more vulnerable you get, the more people see themselves. When you get vulnerable, it turns on a light inside of them, and then they connect to you.
I think it was.
I think it should feel I don't think you do this with someone that's abused you, right? I think you do this with someone where you assume you're going to have a compassionate response. You're entitled to that. I think, and I think in your art, you can assume that the benign viewer is going to have a positive response.
Okay. I just feel like I might be seriously dancing naked. I think I want something on.
Why don't we start with you being really vulnerable with a work of art and not having to show it to anybody, not even me.
What do you mean, making the work?
Yeah. And then see how it feels. First of all, you will grow from the experience. And then we'll see if there's a second of all. You might go, oh, this was great, I'm comfortable with this, okay, I can do it. Or, oh my God, I can't leave the house, no way, I have to destroy this. But either way, it'll push some buttons for you.
Yeah.
And that'll be good.
There was a couple of comments. One of them, I think, was from Christian, and another one might have been from Foster Goldstrom, and they were talking about art that attracts them has got to be speaking about what's happening in the world now. So it's like a portrait of history of time, as opposed to artists that are, I don't know. And I wondered, is my work too personal?
No. I think you can be as personal as you want, and it gets universal. And I think you can get sort of personal, and it gets sort of universal. And I think it has to do with people with whom you connect, and I think that influences the course of humanity and history, kind of, on our good days. Okay, cool. Okay, who's left that wants to say something interesting? I'm not seeing hands. I'm seeing Diane hiding. Hi, Diane. I might come to you, but Ian is gesticulating and saving you. Okay, Ian.
Hello?
Yes, louder.
Louder? Okay.
Yeah.
I guess it's been fantastic. A lot of things have changed in the way I'm approaching everything since I've begun these seminars, and that's really buoying. It's and yet I don't like saying goodbye at all, ever. I'm not saying goodbye now, but this is me being vulnerable and talking about feelings. And so that's just, I'm quite nervous about what I'm going to say, you know, and I sort of feel it in my body. However, some random notes are the idea of a poet to write something, or perhaps taking a risk and choosing something that's considered someone or some way that's inappropriate. Maybe a child, maybe a computer, because the whole idea of the testimonial in advertising is closely linked to the catalogue essay. And maybe it's a film rather than text. Maybe it is me talking like this, you know, like I think we're at a time where we're seeing through a lot of abuse and we're seeing through a lot of shit. And I feel like I'm afraid of being vulnerable. There's a lot of work that I haven't shown people. But I think what you were saying about not bold but clever, I think that's related to context. Not bold, clever. I think the weather was an interesting thing. I think the weather as a metaphor is fantastic. I walk down the street here and, you know, it's just comfortable.
Yep.
So the idea of an innocent individual's approach, rather than, say, me asking anybody if they know Elton John, and I'd like him to write something or purchase something of mine because he collects photography. That would be, oh, that's a big ask, isn't it? You know. However, if I was Fox Studios, I'd be saying, yeah, well, we'll get on to Elton John, or Mary knows Elton John. And then it becomes a word of mouth thing. Oh, he's in Elton's collection, you know. And I do tend to see the power and value in that, but I also have a certain amount of energy, and maybe we can see through that. So it's quite exciting where you're leading me, because I've got to come up with, well, I don't have to, but.
This is great.
No, I'll leave it at that.
I'm not leading you. You're leading you. I'm pushing you. You know, and you're flying. And I think you have insanely brilliant ideas. And I think you should pursue this. And I think there's a lot of truth and wisdom in what you're expressing. And I find it pretty exciting. And I think you're touching on things for me that resonate personally that I haven't quite felt or experienced before. I'm giving you maximum encouragement.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's a big burden. Good luck.
Thank you.
You're really welcome, and thank you too.
Everyone too.
Yeah, it is everyone. Hi, Diane. How are you? You're unmuted.
Hello.
Hi there.
Okay. This week I just seemed, from all the, I watched most of the webinars, and at some points I just felt like I was totally disconnected because I had no idea what you were talking about or the people you were talking about. And but at the same time I was realizing there's other ways that I could be connected that I'm not, that I could be pursuing. So that was really an interesting kind of thing that happened. Vulnerability has been brought up quite a bit this week, and I think I've been doing a lot of plein air painting the last year, I guess, more so than I had before. And you have to be you're really putting yourself out there when you're out in the public painting, and people are always coming up and making comments and asking questions, and through that process, it's really eased my fear of that, I guess, because you know I'm working and it happens, and whatever is happening is happening. It's just freeing, I guess, not to worry about what people are saying or thinking, or you know, and I'm just doing my thing. So.
You say freeing or fraying?
Freeing.
Okay, good.
Free, yeah. And now, after doing it for a while, I started out doing plein air back when I first started painting years and years ago, but I'd kind of gotten away from it, and you know, I was just toiling away in my studio doing things, and I kind of had gotten into that fear mentality, I guess, of showing my work again. But now that I've gotten back out to doing plein air work, it's kind of gone away. Just
good strategy. Yeah, it's hard, and it's worth it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Maybe we should wrap it up, but maybe we have somebody who wants to say something interesting. Beth, you get the last word. You are unmuted.
Okay, well, I found that writing the blog, and I don't write it as regularly as I should, and I agree with you about consistency and you know, that we talked about earlier. But writing a blog, I end up explaining my work to myself and my process to myself, and as well as to the people that are reading the blog, and connecting it with the rest of my life, because there has to be a balance there. And the other thing is, I ended up starting a part of my website that's for just process. So I include other things like books that I'm reading and how I'm struggling with different concepts. And that's really helped me to understand my own work better as well. So those are just two things that that I've been doing with my stuff.
Cool. All right. Let me see if I can use that as a means of summing this up. I think there are lots, you know, as an old person, I think throughout our whole life, we continue to grow. And I can't imagine that I'm going to learn something more tomorrow. But, you know, I've already learned stuff this evening. And I think it's a question of trying to put, Woody Nelson's biography is, Willie Nelson is still moving, and Kerry James Marshall talks about, as long as you're putting one foot in front of the other, there's motion. And I think it's a growing experience, and there's lots of people out there that we can call on to assist us in our growth and to assist us in getting our message out there. Not everybody is an ally, but if 10% of the people on the planet have ally potential, that's a few billion, and we're not alone in this. And there are other people who identify with what I am doing and with what you are doing and want to facilitate and augment what you are doing. Some of them totally deserve compensation for that. Some of them don't need to be paid. Some of them want to do reciprocity. We'll talk about collectors next week. Collectors, as you think about this, they can be supportive and don't have to buy a physical work of art. We can talk about that. There are an intense number of ways for people to be supportive. I think the takeaway tonight is that all of the people in the art world like art. They are not there because they see it as very few, as a means of getting rich quick. There might be 6 of those. The other billion people are there because they believe in it. And part of that, it is you. And you in wanting to see your art get to more people because it benefits art and it benefits them. We're not alone in this activity. You guys are all pretty soon unmuted. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thank you all. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.